it's not going to happen. Speaking of collapses, it's a bit of a bad week for Chelsea, wasn't it? They rested all their players in the League Cup for the Man United game, and they went out and then I know you boys said it was bad quality at the weekend. I do think Man United structurally were good, defended well, nullified them, and stopped one of the best attacks in the country. The likes of De Ligt, Maswari were excellent, but a bad week really for Chelsea, who I think felt they were going to go through in the cup. They the word was, our squad is one of the best in the Prem. They got beat by Newcastle. And then they go to Man United, and you saw the match reactions afterwards. Chelsea fans thought they were going to come away with 3 points, 3 or 4 goals, and it didn't quite happen. Has it just been a bad week, or maybe a little bit of reality setting in LB?
Probably a bit of that, man.
Yeah, listen, I think for me, I think obviously Chelsea are looking a lot better than maybe a lot of people thought. The fact that they're in the top 4 now is impressive, although I did have them in and around that anyway. I think really you've got to look at the job Maresca's doing. He's doing a decent job. I think getting knocked out of the League Cup is disappointing because if you look at the squad they have, they probably could have won that. You know what I mean? If they stuck in there, they had a decent chance of winning it. But if Maresca can win the FA Cup or win that Conference League, and I know some people don't rate the Conference League, but still a European Cup, even though there are not many decent teams in it. If he can win the FA Cup and or the Conference League and finish top 4 in his first season, I think you have to take your hat off to him and say, fair enough. By the way, that is with a goalkeeper. I actually know that Sanchez did make some good saves against United, but Sanchez, I think, is one of the worst, if not the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League. Yeah. And Jackson, even though he's doing well, still don't think he's their long-term solution as the striker. Yeah. So I think if he can finish top 4, win an FA Cup, win a Conference League, I think you got to say that's a pretty good job. And then what you do is next summer, if you add in a proper top-class goalkeeper, and you might make an acquisition as a striker, depending on how Jackson's doing, they could be a serious threat for the Premier League next year. So I think, fair play to him. Fair play to him. He's doing a good job. If he can finish top 4, win a trophy, I think that is a great season, especially with that Sanchez in there, because he is awful. I think he's the worst goalkeeper in the league.
I think Chelsea's midfield is going to get really good, by the way. I think Lavia, I've always rated Lavia. I never wanted to say it too loudly, but I always rated Lavia. They keep him fit. He is a great, great player. Caicedo, for me, has probably been one of the best midfielders in the league this season. I think he's been that good. And then you look at Palmer, and I know people will give him stick, but he's in that state now where Cole Palmer's been looked at in every single game under a microscope. But trust me, the guy has got serious ability still, as we know, goals and assists wise. And I think if they can keep that together, I think that could be a very, very formidable midfield that finally has some balance in it. I mean, I don't know, it's uncomfortable questions for the likes of Enzo Fernandez, that's for sure. But certainly if those 3 stay fit, I think Lavia, Caicedo and Palmer have an unbelievable ability of getting Chelsea across the line. I still feel personally like they do need a centre forward, and I know that they have the best attack in the league, but Arsenal scored a ridiculous amount of goals last season, and we still need a striker, so they definitely do. And defensively, I question Chelsea sometimes. I'm not quite sure they've got that right at the moment. I think they could do with another centre-half and potentially look at a centre-half pairing. And with LB, I think the goalkeeper's a shambles. I really do. And I understand he's made some good shot stops, but trust me, I've seen goalkeepers at Arsenal that are good at shot stopping and not much else. That Sanchez is a bozo, mate, and he needs to go.
I reckon he's the worst goalkeeper in the league, legit. Who's the worst goalkeeper than him in the league? Because I had a look through the list, man.
In the Ipswich Town one, man. What's his name?
Muric?
He looks absolutely
It may be Muric. I did say that last time. I think maybe Muric is a shout. Other than that?
No, you're right. I said he's one of the worst in the league when he was at Brighton. I couldn't believe they bought him. I thought he was absolutely awful. So look, I've got to say it. I think there's definitely goalkeepers that have been worse than him in the Premier League, and then maybe that are worse. People will probably shout in the chat now, some of them. But let's just be real. Chelsea have actually looked pretty good in terms of how they set up and their tactics under Maresca. They definitely need to improve, and they're nowhere near where they should be. Chelsea should be winning titles and Champions Leagues. That's where they should be, right? So they're nowhere near that. So they've got a long way to go, but it's been a good start for them. And I think a lot of people had them floating around maybe 9th, 8th, 7th this season. And certainly they're going to, in my opinion, get Champions League football, whether that's 4th or 5th through the coefficients. So, yeah, I have them definitely in the top 5 still. I thought they were disappointing in the attack against Man United, if I'm honest. I didn't think Manchester United were great either, but I suppose from where Man United were, they'll probably take a point against Chelsea because of the way things have been going and where they are at. But I didn't think either team looked fantastic. And I think Chelsea were quite disappointing in the front line, to be fair, considering they've been so impressive going forward and scoring goals. They are a little bit Cole Palmer FC, if I'm honest still. I think when he has a bad game, Chelsea don't win. We saw that against Liverpool and now against Manchester United. And other games, if I'm honest, this season.
City as well. City goes to the games as well. First game of the season.
Palace as well. And Forest as well, actually. So, yeah, he really is Palmer FC. Everywhere they've dropped points, he's had bad games. So
but other players then need to step up, don't they? Potsy, you know what I mean? Because this is what you're saying, isn't it? Like, you can't just rely on one player in Cole Palmer. I mean, he's a brilliant player.
We got Saka, and that really don't play well. It's the same with us.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, Neto, Madueke, whoever Jackson, whoever it is, they need to step up and help out, because you're right. It does seem like if Palmer's on it, you're in trouble as the opposition team. You're in serious trouble because he'll tear you apart. But if he's having a bit of a quiet game, by the way, he's entitled to, yeah. He's not Messi. He's not going to be playing 10 out of 10 every week. Sometimes he isn't going to have a good game. Where are the other players that are going to step up? You can't just rely on one player all the time. So, yeah, I do think that some of them... But it's the first season under this manager. I said it before. I think Chelsea fans should be quietly optimistic about what's going on. Like I say, if they can finish top 4 and win a trophy in his first year, I think that's a top season. Considering the fact that they still don't have a good goalkeeper and the striker's still a little bit like long-term issues, a question mark, I think that's a great season. Brilliant.
Yeah, look, I think it's a bad week for them. I saw a lot of their anger, and I don't know whether that was really at their own team or whether it was just they really wanted to dunk on Man United and they didn't get the opportunity to. I've seen a few United fans that were really angry after the game, and they've kind of admitted now, I just wanted to stick it on Chelsea. I'm like, it's not really an excuse to attack your football team because you didn't get to banter people on Twitter. Personally, but then I'm nearly 40, so maybe I view the world differently. But this is going to happen. They're a team that's growing, that's developing, but you're going to have these moments. I do think rotating for the League Cup and then for the United game and then not winning either, that always adds insult to injury. Whenever you rotate for a cup game, go out and then don't win the subsequent league game, it will always frustrate a fan base. yeah, sort of. But obviously, you haven't got you've got a few more excuses than them at the moment with the fact you've won loads of those trophies and whatever else. And I think that, look, Maresca is at the beginning of his time at Chelsea. He's going to get time because they've started well. But Chelsea are going into 3 to 4 years now without a trophy, and the League Cup's gone, and they've got they should win the Conference League. I just can't understand them not winning that at the moment. They just look so much better than everybody else in it. So maybe that will give them that trophy. They kind of complete the European set. But in their heart of hearts, Chelsea is such a big club now. They can't just play football for 3 or 4 years. They need to try and win trophies along the way. So I think there was a bit of a bad week for them. The Palmer stuff as well. Look, he hasn't had the greatest of times in the bigger clashes this season. But I'm going to defend him like I defend a lot of other players like Saka and Foden in those scenarios. It's agenda-driven analysis when it comes to players. This proves he's a fast-track bully. Okay, I just remember Ronaldo getting treated like this as a 21-year-old in England because he wasn't quite doing it yet against the big boys. It sometimes takes time. Like we're so ready and willing to make overarching statements that trying to define someone's career at the fledgling stage of it. I find it a bit boring, if I'm being honest. If he was 25, 26, 27 and had barely done it against the big boys, fair enough. But this is a young man who's only really he's got 3 months into his second full season as a pro, and he hasn't quite turned up in some big games for his club this year. This man scored in a European Cup final a few months ago. I don't know. Listen, I was glad he didn't have a good game. I'm glad we stopped him. But I felt like some of the reaction from rival fans towards him since then has been dramatic, to say the least. I think it's been a little bit over the top, personally. But that's just me. Comment here says Chelsea 5th. Yeah, they might come about 5th. And 5th would be
that gets Champions League. So if that's what I'm saying. If they can get Champions League and win a trophy in his first year, because you can remember as well, people won't like this, but if you finish 2nd or you finished 4th, it's the same thing. And people will say, context. No, it's the same thing. You're both getting Champions League. You both didn't win the league and you both got Champions League. So if Chelsea get 5th, that apparently is going to get us Champions League this year, because that's what they're saying. If you get 5th, you get Champions League, because England are in the coefficient thing, and win a trophy, and then buy a striker maybe, or improve the squad and buy a goalkeeper, they'll be a problem next year for the Premier League. They will.
Mish makes a point here. He says Palmer had a ridiculous season last year, and now teams are marking him tighter. It's literally how football works. It's true.
That is a very good point. It is. But
it
that was always
is.
going to happen, right? That was always going to happen.
Exactly, which is why, again, after one very good season, I wasn't going, better than Foden, better than this, better than that. It was last season he might have been, but it's a case. Well, actually, last season Foden was amazing, but you can't take one season of a player and say that overrides 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons of somebody else. In reality, that's just never how football analysis has been done.
There's no excuses to that either, because Saka's had that now for the best part of 4 years. So it's not like, it's a shame now because Palmer's being double marked. Get used to it, man. Saka's had that for.
It's what happens. It's what happens when you're a top player. At the end of the day,
what I mean. Of course it is.
It's why the likes of Ronaldo and Messi are so respected, because they literally from the age of about 21 until now, they've been doubled up on and they still deliver. You got. That's what separates the best. The only difference is about 6 million as well. What's 6 million to even? The only time I say there's a difference between second and fourth is if you come second and you're 1 point off the champions, but you and the champions are sort of 20 points above everybody else.
Yeah.
In terms of the quality of your team.
Agree with that. Yeah.
But in terms of the outcome for your team, in terms of what you achieve, what you receive, absolutely. So I think there's a little bit of context, but generally I knew what LB meant. So I think, a few people say no, not if you're challenging, but I think we all understood what LB meant. Sometimes we don't need to scrutinize it word for word. I agree. Terry Palmer is people overrate Palmer. I didn't say that.
I think people.
Agree.
Listen, I'll say this year as a City fan who didn't want him to be sold, as a City fan who said it was a mistake at the time. So I'll never hold a cook in you. I'll never hold it. I'll just say nah, because I never said we should have sold him in the first place. There are City fans who said, yeah, fine, sell him. Cook them, not cook me, because I didn't want to sell him. I think, he will go on to be one of the best players in the world. I think at this moment in time, the hype is probably a bit too extreme, but for me, I think he's going to go on to be one of the best players in the world. But I think he needs a couple more seasons, like Saka. Saka's got done season after season. Salah at Liverpool, season after season after season. That's what makes these players great, is because they do it year after year after year. They don't just have a meet you year in it and just meet you. Remember meet you at Swansea? Guy was mad. Guy moved mad for a season. Everyone was like, "This guy's mint." You know what I mean? And it turns out a year later he's playing in Segunda B division or whatever in Spain. Consistency, man.
Yeah, great year. Becky here says, Terry, you don't believe Grealish is better than Salah on the eye. I think it is I was using it as an example. However, I think it is not a crazy statement to say on the eye, visually, Jack Grealish looks better than Mo Salah. Who do I think the better football player is? By a country mile, Mo Salah. By a country mile. But I think I can understand why people would look at the way Grealish controls the ball, dribbles, the way he rolls the ball over his foot. Some people, how cleanly he strikes it. I think a lot of people are looking, eye test wise, Jack Grealish wins that. But again, winning the eye test is almost irrelevant in football. It's about the productivity and the consistency around it, in my humble opinion. So there we go. This year's the same convo about City every year. Do you feel it's a little different this year, LB? People talk about City not quite being as good. Do you feel it's a different conversation to normal?
I don't know, because we do have this guys, right? We do have this conversation every year, but we have to have it every year because we go through the same thing every year. Listen, I don't know. I think for me, let's see what happens when De Bruyne gets back in the team. Let's have a look what happens when the players are back, which is basically now. If we're still playing badly after the international break, then maybe we can say, hang on a minute, maybe this is different. But we're in a bit of a unique situation here.
Oh, wow. Sorry. Howard Webb has just come out and said that the controversial West Ham penalty, which led to Ten Hag sacking, that led to his sacking. They didn't lead to his sacking. His form did, but okay. Less than 24 hours later should not have been given, according to Howard Webb. Do you know, it's just predictable. They only ever admit to the mistakes that no one's going to give a shit about. Does that make sense? Like, everyone will go, yeah, great, let's move on from it. And I knew that was coming. Look,